Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, prepare to be immersed in a world of eerie whispers and unsettling tales, designed to both chill and soothe. Now close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness carry you away. And if these nightly tales captivate you, feel free to join our community for more whispered secrets. Gabby Petito's life began on March 19, 1999, in Blue Point, New York, a small suburban town on Long Island. She was the eldest of 6 siblings and half-siblings, a bright and creative child who loved art, nature, and adventure. Her mother, Nicole Schmidt, often described her as a free spirit, someone who could light up a room with her smile. Her father, Joe Petito, remembered her as a dreamer, always sketching landscapes in her notebooks and talking about seeing the world. By the time she was a teenager at Bayport Blue Point High School, Gabby had already developed a deep connection with Brian Laundrie, a fellow student who shared her love for the outdoors. They were friends first, their bond growing over shared hikes and late-night conversations about escaping the ordinary. After graduating in 2017, Gabby and Brian drifted apart briefly, but they reconnected in 2019 and quickly became inseparable. Gabby, then 20, was working at a local Taco Bell, saving every penny she could, while Brian, 23, worked odd jobs in Northport, Florida, where his parents, Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, lived. The couple's relationship deepened, and in July 2020, Brian proposed to Gabby during a trip to a Florida beach. There was no ring, but as they sat together watching the sunset, a firefly landed on Gabby's finger, a moment they both saw as a sign of good luck. Gabby posted about the engagement on Instagram, her caption brimming with excitement. "The future is ours." By late 2020, Gabby had saved enough money to buy a 2012 Ford Transit Connect van, a white vehicle she and Brian spent months converting into a camper. They painted the interior, installed a small bed, and added storage for their gear, envisioning a life on the road. Inspired by the van life movement, a trend that had surged during the COVID-19 pandemic as young people sought freedom from conventional living, Gabby dreamed of becoming a travel vlogger. She created a YouTube channel called Nomadic Static and started an Instagram account under the handle at Gabby Petito, where she began sharing snippets of their plans. On July 2, 2021, Gabby and Brian left Blue Point, New York, for a 4-month cross-country journey, intending to visit national parks across the American West. They documented their early days with photos of themselves smiling in front of the van, their captions filled with hashtags like #vanlife and #adventureawaits. The first few weeks of their trip seemed idyllic, at least on social media. They visited Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, where Gabby posted a photo of herself sitting on a rock overlooking a misty valley. They drove through the Great Smoky Mountains, sharing a video of Brian cooking dinner on a portable stove while Gabby laughed in the background. By late July, they had reached Colorado, where they camped near Great Sand Dunes National Park. Gabby's posts painted a picture of a carefree couple, deeply in love and living their dream. But beneath the curated images, there were signs of tension. Friends later recalled that Gabby and Brian's relationship had always been volatile. Rose Davis, a close friend of Gabby's in Florida, noted that Brian could be controlling, often taking Gabby's phone or wallet to keep her from going out. Gabby, however, would brush off these incidents, telling Rose, "He's just stressed. He loves me." On August 12, 2021, the couple's journey took a darker turn in Moab, Utah. They had been in the area for a few days, exploring Arches National Park, when a witness called 911 to report a disturbing scene outside the Moonflower Community Cooperative. The caller, whose identity was later withheld, told the dispatcher that he had seen a man slapping a woman, describing the man as aggressive and the woman as visibly upset. Moab police responded quickly, pulling over the white van near the park entrance. Body camera footage from the stop captured a tearful Gabby, her face red and streaked with tears, as she spoke to officers Eric Pratt and Daniel Robbins. She admitted to hitting Brian first, explaining that she had been struggling with her OCD and anxiety, which had worsened during the trip. "I was just cleaning the van, and I got frustrated," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry I'm so mean sometimes." Brian, speaking to the officers separately, appeared calm but had visible scratches on his face and arms. He told them that Gabby had grabbed his face during an argument, but he insisted he didn't want to press charges. "We're in love," he said, offering a faint smile. "We just need to cool off." The officers, after a lengthy discussion captured on the body cam, decided not to make an arrest, classifying the incident as a mental health crisis rather than domestic violence. They separated the couple for the night, arranging for Brian to stay at the Bowen Motel in Moab while Gabby kept the van. The footage showed Gabby wiping her eyes as she drove away, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. This encounter, which lasted over an hour, would later become a pivotal moment in the investigation, raising questions about whether more could have been done to protect Gabby. As August progressed, Gabby and Brian continued their journey, but the cracks in their relationship were becoming harder to hide. On August 19th, they posted a video on their nomadic static YouTube channel titled Van Life, Beginning Our Van Life Journey. The 8-minute vlog showed them laughing and kissing in various scenic locations, set to upbeat music. But those who knew them saw the video differently. Rose Davis later told investigators that Gabby had called her a few days before the video was posted, sounding upset. "Brian's been acting weird," Gabby had said. "He keeps saying I'm not good enough to be a vlogger. I don't know how much longer I can do this." By the end of August, Gabby's dream of a perfect road trip was unraveling, and the events that would lead to her tragic end were already in motion. Gabby Petito's last known communication with her family came on August 25, 2021, when she shared an Instagram post captioned, "Happy Halloween," despite the date. The photo showed her sitting on the steps of the van with a small pumpkin in her lap, smiling at the camera. She and Brian were in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, a place Gabby had been eager to visit for its rugged peaks and serene lakes. That same day, she FaceTimed her mother, Nicole Schmidt, from a spot near Jackson, Wyoming. Nicole later recalled that Gabby seemed happy during the call, talking excitedly about their plans to head to Yellowstone National Park next. "She was glowing," Nicole said. "I didn't think anything was wrong." But 2 days later, on August 27th, something changed. Nicole received a text from Gabby's phone that read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." The message puzzled Nicole. Stan was Gabby's grandfather, but Gabby never referred to him by his first name. She always called him Papa. Nicole replied, asking if everything was okay, but there was no response. Over the next few days, Nicole sent more messages and tried calling, but Gabby's phone went straight to voicemail. By August 30th, another text came from Gabby's phone. "No service in Yosemite." This alarmed Nicole even more. Gabby had told her they were going to Yellowstone, not Yosemite, which was hundreds of miles away in California. Nicole began to suspect that someone else might be using Gabby's phone. Meanwhile, Brian Laundrie was seen alone in Jackson, Wyoming, on August 27th, the same day Nicole received the strange text about Stan. A couple from Louisiana, Nina Angelo and her boyfriend, spotted him at the Mary Piglet's Tex-Mex restaurant around 4 p.m. Nina later told investigators that Brian appeared agitated, arguing with the staff and storming in and out of the restaurant multiple times. Gabby was with him, but she was in tears, visibly upset as Brian berated the hostess over a seating issue. The couple left the restaurant shortly after, and this was one of the last confirmed sightings of Gabby alive. 2 days later, on August 29th, Brian made several phone calls to his parents, telling them that Gabby was gone and that he needed help. The Laundries immediately contacted their attorney, Stephen Bertolino, but did not reach out to Gabby's family or the police. On September 1st, 2021, Brian arrived at his parents' home in Northport, Florida, driving the white Ford Transit van he and Gabby had been traveling in. Gabby was not with him. His parents welcomed him back, but asked few questions, later claiming they assumed the couple had broken up. Over the next 10 days, Brian stayed at the house, going on a camping trip with his parents and sister, Cassie Laundrie, to Fort De Soto Park from September 6th to 8th. During this time, Gabby's family was growing increasingly desperate. Nicole and Joe Petito, along with Gabby's stepfather, Jim Schmidt, and stepmother, Tara Petito, had been calling and texting Brian and his parents, begging for information. They received no response. On September 10th, Nicole called the Northport Police Department to report her concerns, but the police told her they couldn't act without a formal missing persons report. The next day, September 11th, Nicole filed an official missing persons report with the Suffolk County Police Department in New York. The report triggered a rapid response, as authorities in Florida were alerted to Brian's return with the van and Gabby's absence. Northport police visited the Laundrie home that same day, finding Brian and his parents inside. The Laundries refused to let Brian speak, directing all questions to their attorney, Stephen Bertolino. Bertolino issued a statement saying that Brian would remain silent on the advice of counsel, a decision that infuriated Gabby's family. Joe Petito publicly pleaded for answers, saying, "We just want to know where our daughter is. If you have any decency, please tell us." The case quickly gained national attention, fueled by Gabby's social media presence and the mystery surrounding her disappearance. Her Instagram and YouTube accounts, which had documented the couple's journey, became focal points for online sleuths. TikTok users, under the hashtag #GabbyPetito, began analyzing her posts for clues, noting discrepancies between her sunny captions and the reality of her relationship with Brian. The Moab police body camera footage from August 12th was leaked to the media on September 16th, showing Gabby's emotional state during the traffic stop. The video went viral, with millions of viewers pointing out the red flags in the couple's dynamic: Gabby's anxiety, Brian's dismissive attitude, and the officer's decision not to arrest either of them despite the reported physical altercation. As the search for Gabby intensified, the FBI took over the investigation, coordinating with local authorities in Wyoming, where Gabby was last known to be. On September 13th, a travel blogging couple, Kyle and Jen Bethune, posted a video on their YouTube channel, Red, White, and Bethune, that would prove crucial. The video, recorded on August 27th, showed Gabby's white van parked near Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area in Grand Teton National Park. The Bethunes had noticed the van while driving through the area and thought it looked out of place, so they included the footage in their vlog. After hearing about Gabby's disappearance, they contacted the FBI, providing the exact coordinates of the van's location. On September 15th, Northport police officially named Brian Laundrie a person of interest in Gabby's disappearance, citing his refusal to cooperate. 2 days later, on September 17th, the Laundries reported Brian missing, claiming they last saw him on September 13th when he left their home for a hike in the Carlton Reserve, a 25,000-acre nature preserve near Northport. They said he had taken only a backpack and hadn't returned. The police launched a massive search of the reserve, deploying helicopters, drones, and K-9 units, but found no trace of Brian. The Laundries delayed reporting of Brian's disappearance, 4 days after he allegedly left, raised suspicions among investigators and the public alike. By this point, the case had become a media frenzy, with news outlets covering every development and social media platforms buzzing with theories about what had happened to Gabby Petito. The discovery of Gabby Petito's remains on September 19, 2021, marked a turning point in the case, shifting the narrative from a missing persons investigation to a homicide. The FBI, acting on the tip from the Bethune's video, searched the Spread Creek area in Grand Teton National Park and found a body matching Gabby's description. The remains were located in a remote clearing, surrounded by sagebrush and pine trees, about 900 feet from where the van had been parked. The Teton County coroner, Dr. Brent Blue, was called to the scene, and on September 21st, he confirmed that the body was indeed Gabby's. A preliminary autopsy revealed that her death was a homicide, though the exact cause was not immediately released. The news sent shockwaves through Gabby's family and the millions of people following the case online. Nicole Schmidt and Joe Petito were in Wyoming at the time, having flown there with Jim Schmidt to assist in the search. Jim was the one who received the call from the FBI, informing them of the discovery. "I collapsed to the ground," he later recalled. "I had to pick myself up and call Nicole and Joe, and tell them from 2,000 miles away that our daughter was dead." The family released a statement through their attorney, Richard Stafford, asking for privacy as they grieved. "We are heartbroken," the statement read. "All we want now is to bring Gabby home and lay her to rest." A candlelight vigil was held in Blue Point, New York, on September 24th, where hundreds of people gathered to honor Gabby's memory. Friends and neighbors left flowers, candles, and notes at a makeshift memorial outside her childhood home. The public's response to Gabby's death was unprecedented, driven by the power of social media and the true crime community. TikTok users, who had been following the case under hashtags like #GabbyPetito and #FindGabby, shifted their focus to seeking justice. The #JusticeForGabby gained millions of views as users shared theories about Brian Laundrie's involvement and criticized the Laundries for their silence. On Instagram, accounts dedicated to the case, such as @Gabby Petito, began posting updates and calling for Brian to turn himself in. The mainstream media also descended on North Port, Florida, setting up camp outside the Laundrie home. Protesters gathered daily, holding signs that read, "Where's Gabby?" and "Speak up, Brian." The pressure on the Laundries was immense, but they remained silent, communicating only through their attorney, Stephen Bertolino. On September 23rd, the U.S. District Court of Wyoming issued a federal arrest warrant for Brian Laundrie, charging him with unauthorized use of a debit card. The warrant alleged that Brian had used Gabby's Capital One debit card to make withdrawals totaling over $1,000 between August 30th and September 1st, after her death. While the warrant was not directly related to the homicide, it provided a legal basis to pursue Brian as a fugitive. The FBI intensified their search of the Carlton Reserve, where Brian was last seen, but the terrain, swampy, alligator-infested, and prone to flooding, made the operation challenging. Divers, boats, and drones were deployed, but weeks passed with no sign of Brian. The Moab police body camera footage from August 12th became a focal point of public scrutiny. Viewers noted Gabby's distress. She was crying uncontrollably, rubbing her knees, and struggling to speak, while Brian appeared calm and detached, even joking with the officers. Many criticized the Moab Police Department for not recognizing the signs of domestic violence, despite the 9/11 caller's report of Brian hitting Gabby. The officers' decision to separate the couple for the night, rather than make an arrest, was seen by some as a missed opportunity to intervene. On September 29th, the Petito family announced they were filing a lawsuit against the Moab Police Department, alleging negligent failure in their handling of the August 12th incident. The lawsuit claimed that the officers' actions, or lack thereof, contributed to Gabby's death. Media coverage of the case also sparked a broader conversation about missing white woman syndrome, a term used to describe the disproportionate attention given to cases involving young, white, middle-class women compared to missing persons of color. Advocacy groups like the Black and Missing Foundation pointed out that hundreds of Indigenous women had gone missing in Wyoming over the past decade, yet their cases received little media attention. The murders of Keelan Schultz and Crystal Turner, a newlywed couple killed in Moab just days before Gabby's last sighting in the area, were often mentioned in connection to her case, though no link was ever confirmed. The Petito family acknowledged these disparities, with Joe Petito stating in a press conference, "We want Gabby's story to help others, no matter who they are. No family should go through this." By early October 2021, the search for Brian Laundrie had become a national obsession. On October 5th, Miranda Baker, a TikTok user, posted a video claiming she and her boyfriend had picked up Brian hitchhiking near Grand Teton on August 29th. Miranda said Brian offered them $200 for a short ride, but became agitated when they mentioned they were going to Jackson. He allegedly jumped out of their car near the Jackson Dam, saying he would find another way to his destination. Miranda's story added to the timeline of Brian's movements after Gabby's death, suggesting he was trying to create an alibi by appearing to be a lone hiker. The FBI followed up on her tip, but Brian remained elusive. Gabby's family continued to push for answers, holding press conferences to keep the case in the public eye. On October 12, Dr. Brent Blue released the final autopsy report, revealing that Gabby had died from blunt force injuries to the head and neck, combined with manual strangulation. The coroner estimated that her body had been in the wilderness for 3 to 4 weeks before it was found, placing her time of death around late August. The report confirmed what many had suspected. Gabby had been murdered, and Brian Laundrie, the last person known to be with her, was the primary suspect. The nation watched and waited, hoping for a breakthrough that would bring Gabby's killer to justice. The search for Brian Laundrie consumed law enforcement resources and public attention throughout October 2021. The Carlton Reserve, a vast and treacherous wilderness near Northport, Florida, became the epicenter of the manhunt. The FBI, Northport Police, and other agencies deployed hundreds of personnel, using advanced technology like drones, thermal imaging cameras, and underwater dive teams to comb through the swampy terrain. The reserve's conditions were brutal: flooded trails, dense vegetation, and wildlife hazards like alligators and snakes slowed progress. Volunteers from the community joined the effort, wading through knee-deep water in hopes of finding any sign of Brian. The Laundrie family's behavior during this time drew intense scrutiny. Christopher and Roberta Laundrie had reported Brian missing on September 17th, but only after Northport police began questioning them about his whereabouts. On September 16th, the police had seized Gabby's van from the Laundrie home as part of the investigation, processing it for evidence. Inside, they found traces of Gabby's DNA, as well as fingerprints belonging to both her and Brian. The Laundrie's decision to wait 4 days before reporting Brian's disappearance raised questions about their involvement. Critics pointed out that they had also gone on a camping trip with Brian from September 6th to 8th at Fort De Soto Park, a detail that seemed incongruous with the urgency of Gabby's disappearance. On October 7, 2021, Christopher and Roberta Laundrie finally joined the search in the Carlton Reserve, a move that many saw as a response to public pressure. Within hours of their arrival, they directed authorities to a specific area of the reserve known as the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park, a section connected to the larger preserve. There, in a spot that had been underwater during earlier searches but had recently dried out, they found a white dry bag belonging to Brian. Nearby, FBI agents discovered human remains, later confirmed through dental records to be Brian Laundrie's. The discovery was a stunning development, ending the manhunt but raising new questions about what had happened to him. An autopsy conducted on November 23, 2021, determined that Brian had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Near his remains, investigators found a revolver and a notebook, both heavily damaged by water exposure. The notebook, once dried and examined, contained a chilling confession. In it, Brian admitted to killing Gabby, writing that he had ended her life during an argument in Grand Teton National Park. He claimed it was a mercy killing, alleging that Gabby had been injured and was in pain, though this contradicted the coroner's findings of a violent death by strangulation. Brian wrote that he had panicked after her death, driving the van back to Florida while trying to figure out what to do. He expressed remorse but also fear of facing the consequences, ultimately deciding to take his own life. The revelation of Brian's confession brought a mix of emotions for Gabby's family. On one hand, it provided closure, confirming that Brian was responsible for her death. On the other hand, it denied them the chance to see him face justice in a courtroom. Nicole Schmidt spoke at a press conference on November 24th, her voice breaking as she addressed the media. "We wanted him to answer for what he did," she said, "but at least now we know the truth. Gabby didn't deserve this. She was a beautiful soul, and will carry her memory forever." Joe Petito added, "Brian took the coward's way out. We'll never get to ask him why, but we'll keep fighting for Gabby's legacy." The public reaction to Brian's death was equally complex. On social media, many expressed relief that the manhunt was over, but others were frustrated that Brian would never stand trial. TikTok users who had been following the case posted videos analyzing Brian's notebook entries, with some questioning whether his account of a mercy killing was a fabrication to justify his actions. True crime podcasts such as Crime Junkie and Morbid released episodes dissecting the case, focusing on the domestic violence dynamics that had led to Gabby's death. The Moab police body camera footage was revisited, with experts pointing out missed opportunities to intervene, such as the officer's failure to recognize Brian's controlling behavior during the August 12th stop. Gabby's family channeled their grief into advocacy, establishing the Gabby Petito Foundation in late 2021 to support searches for missing persons and raise awareness about domestic violence. The foundation quickly gained support, receiving donations from people across the country who had been touched by Gabby's story. On October 20th, 2021, the same day Brian's remains were found, the foundation organized a memorial event in Grand Teton National Park, near where Gabby's body had been discovered. Family and friends gathered to plant a tree in her honor, placing a plaque at its base that read, "Gabby Petito, a light in the darkness." The case also prompted legal action against the Laundrie family. In March 2022, Gabby's parents filed a civil lawsuit against Christopher and Roberta Laundrie in Sarasota County, Florida, seeking damages for emotional distress. The lawsuit alleged that the Laundries knew Brian had killed Gabby as early as August 28, 2021, when he called them saying she was gone. Yet they did nothing to help Gabby's family find her. The filing claimed that the Laundries had gone on vacation with Brian while Gabby's parents were frantically searching for her, and that Roberta had blocked Nicole's phone number and Facebook profile to avoid contact. The Laundries' attorney, Stephen Bertolino, called the lawsuit baseless and moved to dismiss it, but the case moved forward, setting the stage for a contentious legal battle. The civil lawsuit filed by Gabby Petito's parents against Christopher and Roberta Laundrie became a focal point of the case in 2022, as the family sought to hold someone accountable for their daughter's death. The lawsuit, filed in Sarasota County Circuit Court, accused the Laundries of intentional infliction of emotional distress, alleging that they had concealed Brian's confession to Gabby's murder while her parents were desperately searching for her. The filing detailed how the Laundries had gone camping with Brian at Fort D. Soto Park from September 6 to 8, 2021, even as Nicole Schmidt and Joe Petito were calling and texting them for information. It also claimed that Roberta Laundrie had blocked Nicole's attempts to reach out, adding to the family's anguish. During the court proceedings, a particularly damning piece of evidence emerged. A letter written by Roberta Laundrie to Brian, found among his belongings in the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. The letter, concealed in an envelope marked "Burn After Reading," contained disturbing content. In it, Roberta wrote, "If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. Nothing can separate us, not even a life sentence." The Petito family's attorney, Patrick Riley, argued that the letter proved the Laundries were willing to help Brian cover up a crime. "These are criminal acts that Roberta Laundrie said she would commit," Riley told the court. The Laundries' legal team fought to have the letter excluded, claiming it was written before the couple's road trip and was not relevant to Gabby's death. However, the judge overruled their request, allowing the letter to be admitted as evidence. The trial revealed more about the Laundries' actions in the days following Gabby's death. On August 29, 2021, Brian had called his parents multiple times, telling them Gabby was gone and that he needed help. Instead of contacting the authorities or Gabby's family, the Laundries called their attorney, Stephen Bertolino, who advised them to remain silent. The lawsuit argued that this silence caused immense emotional harm to Gabby's parents, who were left in the dark while the Laundries knew their daughter was dead. The Petitos also pointed to the Laundries' behavior after Brian returned to Florida, noting that they had gone on a family camping trip while Gabby's family was pleading for answers. In November 2022, a judge awarded Gabby's family $3 million in a separate wrongful death lawsuit against Brian Laundrie's estate. The civil suit against the Laundries, however, dragged on into 2023, with both sides engaging in a bitter legal battle. The Laundries maintained that they had no legal obligation to help Gabby's family, and that they were protecting their son's rights by remaining silent. Public sentiment, however, was largely against them, with many viewing their actions as callous and complicit. Protesters continued to gather outside their Northport home, demanding accountability, while social media users shared the burn after reading letter under hashtags like #JusticeForGabby. In early 2024, after a long day of mediation, the Petito and Laundrie families reached a settlement in the emotional distress lawsuit. The terms were not disclosed, but both parties released a statement saying they had reluctantly agreed to the deal to avoid further legal expenses and prolonged conflict. Nicole Schmidt and Joe Petito expressed mixed feelings about the outcome. "No amount of money can bring Gabby back," Nicole said in a press conference. "But we hope this sends a message that families can't hide behind silence when someone's life is at stake." The settlement marked the end of the legal battle, but it did little to heal the wounds left by Gabby's death. The Petito family also pursued legal action against the Moab Police Department, filing a lawsuit in 2022 that accused the officers of negligent failure in their handling of the August 12, 2021 traffic stop. The lawsuit named officers Eric Pratt, Daniel Robbins, and a third officer identified only as Palmer, along with the department itself, alleging that their failure to recognize the signs of domestic violence contributed to Gabby's death. The filing pointed to the 911 call, in which a witness reported seeing Brian hitting Gabby, and argued that the officers should have arrested Brian rather than separating the couple for the night. The lawsuit sought damages for wrongful death, claiming that the officers' inaction allowed Brian to continue harming Gabby. The Moab Police Department defended its actions, stating that the officers had followed protocol and that the incident was classified as a mental health crisis, not domestic violence. However, public opinion was critical, with many pointing to the body camera footage as evidence of missed red flags. In the video, Gabby was visibly distraught, admitting to hitting Brian, but also showing signs of fear and anxiety, while Brian appeared dismissive and unconcerned. The lawsuit was settled in late 2023, with the city of Moab agreeing to pay the Petito family an undisclosed amount and to implement new training programs for officers on handling domestic violence cases. The settlement was seen as a small victory for Gabby's family, who hoped it would lead to systemic change. Throughout this period, the Gabby Petito Foundation continued to grow, becoming a beacon for families of missing persons. The foundation partnered with organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline to provide resources for survivors, and it funded search efforts for other missing individuals. In 2022, the foundation helped locate a missing teenager in Colorado, a success that Nicole Schmidt said gave her a sense of purpose. "Gabby's story is saving lives," she told reporters. "That's the only thing keeping us going." The foundation also organized annual events in Gabby's memory, such as a 5K run in Blue Point, New York, to raise awareness about domestic violence and missing persons cases. By the end of 2024, the legal battles had concluded, but the emotional toll on Gabby's family remained. They continued to grapple with their loss, finding solace in the work of the foundation and the support of the community. The case had left an indelible mark on the nation, raising questions about domestic violence, the role of law enforcement, and the power of social media in solving crimes. As the third anniversary of Gabby's death approached, her family prepared to honor her memory in a new way, ensuring that her legacy would endure. The Gabby Petito case became a cultural phenomenon, amplified by the rise of true crime media and the power of social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram. In 2022, the case inspired a wave of documentaries, podcasts, and television specials, each seeking to unpack the tragedy and its broader implications. On October 1st, 2022, Lifetime released a TV movie titled The Gabby Petito Story as part of its Ripped from the Headlines series. Directed by Thora Birch, who also played Nicole Schmidt, the film starred Skylar Samuels as Gabby and Evan Hall as Brian. The movie focused on the couple's road trip and the events leading up to Gabby's death, drawing heavily from the Moab police body camera footage and Gabby's social media posts. While the film was praised for its performances, some critics felt it sensationalized the tragedy, a concern shared by Gabby's family, who were not consulted during its production. True crime podcasts also devoted extensive coverage to the case. Crime Junkie released a two-part episode in late 2021, detailing the timeline of Gabby's disappearance and Brian's confession. The hosts, Ashley Flowers and Britt Prawat, emphasized the domestic violence dynamics at play, urging listeners to recognize the signs of an abusive relationship. Other podcasts like Morbid and The Vanished explored different angles, such as the role of online sleuths in solving the case and the systemic issues highlighted by Gabby's death, including missing white woman syndrome and the lack of attention given to missing Indigenous women. These discussions resonated with listeners, many of whom shared their own experiences with domestic violence in online forums. The most comprehensive examination of the case came on February 17, 2025, when Netflix released a three-part docuseries titled American Murder, Gabby Petito. Directed by Julia Willoughby Nason and Michael Gasparo, the series featured exclusive interviews with Gabby's family and friends, as well as text messages, video footage, and excerpts from Gabby's personal journals. The first episode, We Bought a Van, explored Gabby's early life, her relationship with Brian, and the start of their road trip. The second episode, Where is Gabby?, covered her disappearance and the nationwide search, while the third, Burn After Reading, delved into the aftermath of her death, including Brian's confession and the legal battles that followed. The docuseries was praised for its sensitive handling of the case, with Gabby's family actively involved in its production. Nicole Schmidt told News Nation, "This is a real story, not just true crime. We want people to see Gabby as a person, not a headline." The Netflix series also highlighted the role of social media in the case, particularly TikTok's true crime community. Under hashtags like #GabbyPetito, users had analyzed every detail of Gabby's posts, from her body language in the Nomadic Static blog to the timing of her last Instagram update. The Bethune's video, which led authorities to Gabby's remains, was a testament to the power of online sleuthing, but the docuseries also addressed the darker side of this phenomenon. Some TikTok users had spread unfounded conspiracy theories, such as linking Gabby's death to the murders of Keelan Schultz and Crystal Turner in Moab, despite no evidence of a connection. Others had wrongly accused innocent people, forcing them to delete their social media accounts after receiving threats. Adam Golub, an American Studies professor at California State University, Fullerton, noted in the series, "The speed and volume of wrongful accusations have increased in this age of true crime on demand. It's a wild west of content." The media frenzy surrounding the case also brought attention to systemic issues in missing persons investigations. Advocacy groups pointed out that while Gabby's story had garnered national attention, countless cases involving people of color, particularly Indigenous women, remained unsolved. In Wyoming alone, over 700 Indigenous individuals had gone missing in the past decade, a statistic that was often cited alongside Gabby's case. The Petito family used their platform to address these disparities, partnering with organizations like Missing and Murdered Indigenous People to amplify other cases. In 2023, the Gabby Petito Foundation funded a billboard campaign in Wyoming, featuring photos of missing Indigenous women and a hotline number for tips. Gabby's family also focused on preserving her memory through personal tributes. On the second anniversary of her death, September 19, 2023, they held a memorial event in Blue Point, New York, where they dedicated a community garden in Gabby's name. The garden featured a mural of Gabby painted by a local artist, depicting her smiling with a backdrop of mountains and a clear blue sky. Nicole Schmidt spoke at the event, saying, "Gabby loved nature, and this garden is a place where people can feel her spirit. We want her to be remembered for the joy she brought, not just the tragedy." The garden became a place of healing for the community, with visitors leaving flowers and notes for Gabby throughout the year. By 2024, the Gabby Petito Foundation had become a significant force in the fight against domestic violence and the search for missing persons. The foundation organized workshops for law enforcement on recognizing signs of abuse, drawing from the lessons of the Moab police encounter. It also provided grants to families searching for loved ones, helping to cover the costs of private investigators and search efforts. In November 2024, the foundation celebrated a milestone when it helped reunite a missing child with their family in Oregon, a moment that brought tears to Joe Petito's eyes. "This is what Gabby would have wanted," he said. "She's still making a difference." As the 4th anniversary of Gabby's death approached in 2025, her family prepared to mark the occasion with a renewed commitment to her legacy. They planned a national awareness campaign through the foundation, focusing on education about domestic violence and the importance of early intervention. The campaign would culminate in a speech by Nicole Schmidt at a conference hosted by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on April 4, 2025, where she would share Gabby's story and call for systemic change. The media attention, while sometimes overwhelming, had given Gabby's family a platform to effect change, ensuring that her death was not in vain. The Gabby Petito case left a lasting impact on law enforcement, prompting a reevaluation of how domestic violence incidents are handled, particularly in the context of missing persons investigations. The Moab Police Department, under scrutiny for its handling of the August 12, 2021, traffic stop, implemented significant changes following the settlement of the Petito family's lawsuit in 2023. The department introduced mandatory training for officers on recognizing signs of domestic abuse, focusing on verbal and nonverbal cues that might indicate a victim is in danger. The training also emphasized the importance of taking 911 calls seriously, especially when a witness reports physical violence, as in Gabby's case. Other police departments across the country took notice, with several adopting similar training programs. In 2024, the Department of Justice launched a national initiative called the Gabby Petito Act, which provided federal funding for domestic violence training and resources for law enforcement agencies. The act was championed by Gabby's family, who worked with lawmakers to ensure its passage. Joe Petito spoke at a congressional hearing in Washington, D.C., in March 2024, sharing Gabby's story and urging legislators to act. "If just one officer had recognized the danger Gabby was in, she might still be here," he said. "We can't bring her back, but we can save others." The act was signed into law later that year, a bittersweet victory for the family. The case also influenced public policy on missing persons cases, particularly regarding the role of social media. The FBI, which had relied on tips from TikTok and YouTube users to locate Gabby's remains, began developing guidelines for working with online sleuths. In 2023, the agency established a task force to study the impact of social media on investigations, aiming to harness its potential while mitigating the risks of misinformation. The task force recommended creating official channels for the public to submit tips, reducing the chaos caused by unverified leads on platforms like TikTok. The guidelines were rolled out in 2024, and several high-profile missing persons cases saw improved coordination between law enforcement and online communities as a result. For Gabby's family, the focus remained on advocacy through the Gabby Petito Foundation. By early 2025, the foundation had expanded its reach, partnering with international organizations to address domestic violence and missing persons cases globally. In January 2025, the foundation launched a scholarship program in Gabby's name, providing financial support for young women pursuing careers in the arts, a field Gabby had been passionate about. The first recipient, a 19-year-old aspiring filmmaker from New York, dedicated her first short film to Gabby, a documentary about the healing power of creativity. Nicole Schmidt attended the film's premiere, moved to tears by the tribute to her daughter. The case continued to resonate in the true crime community, with new content emerging regularly. In 2024, a podcast series titled Vanished in the Tetons explored the broader context of missing persons cases in national parks, using Gabby's story as a starting point. The series highlighted the challenges of searching in remote areas and the need for better resources for park rangers. It also revisited the murders of Keelan Schultz and Crystal Turner in Moab, noting that their case remained unsolved despite renewed attention following Gabby's death. The podcast called for increased funding for cold case investigations, a cause that Gabby's family supported through the foundation. On a personal level, Gabby's family found ways to honor her memory in their daily lives. Nicole Schmidt kept Gabby's sketchbooks in her home office, often flipping through them to feel closer to her daughter. Joe Petito, who had moved to Vero Beach, Florida, after the case, started a tradition of visiting the beach on Gabby's birthday, March 19th, to release biodegradable lanterns into the sky. "It's my way of sending her love," he said. Jim Schmidt, who had been deeply involved in the search for Gabby, became a volunteer with a local search and rescue team in Wyoming, dedicating his time to helping other families find their loved ones. Tara Petito, Gabby's stepmother, wrote a children's book titled Gabby's Light, which told the story of a girl who turned into a star to guide others, a metaphor for Gabby's enduring impact. The broader cultural impact of the case was evident in the conversations it sparked about domestic violence. In 2024, the National Domestic Violence Hotline reported a 20% increase in calls, attributing the rise to increased awareness following high-profile cases like Gabby's. Schools and universities began incorporating discussions about healthy relationships into their curricula, using Gabby's story as a cautionary tale. In Blue Point, New York, Gabby's high school, Bayport Blue Point, established an annual assembly on domestic violence awareness, inviting survivors and advocates to speak to students. The assembly included a moment of silence for Gabby, ensuring that her story remained a part of the community's consciousness. As April 2025 approached, Gabby's family prepared for Nicole's speech at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Conference on April 4th. The event, held in Washington, D.C., brought together advocates, law enforcement, and policymakers to discuss strategies for addressing missing persons cases. Nicole's speech would focus on the lessons learned from Gabby's case, including the importance of early intervention in domestic violence situations and the need for better coordination between agencies. She planned to share a message of hope, emphasizing that even in the face of tragedy, families could make a difference. "Gabby's light still shines," she intended to say. "Let's use it to guide others home." On April 4th, 2025, Nicole Schmidt stood before a packed auditorium at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Conference in Washington, D.C., her hands trembling as she gripped the podium. The room was filled with advocates, law enforcement officers, and families who had experienced the pain of a missing loved one. Nicole took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the crowd, and began to speak. "My daughter, Gabby Petito, was a dreamer," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion welling inside her. She wanted to see the world, to share its beauty with others. But her dream was stolen by someone she trusted, and will never get to see what she could have become. Today, I'm here to make sure her story saves lives. Nicole's speech recounted the harrowing journey of Gabby's disappearance and death, emphasizing the warning signs of domestic violence that had been overlooked. She spoke about the Moab police encounter on August 12, 2021, and how the officer's failure to act had allowed Brian Laundrie to continue his abuse. She highlighted the role of social media in raising awareness, but also cautioned against the spread of misinformation, urging the audience to channel their efforts into constructive advocacy. "Gabby's story isn't just a headline," she said. "It's a call to action. We need better training for law enforcement, more resources for victims, and a system that listens when someone cries for help. The audience responded with a standing ovation, many wiping tears from their eyes. Nicole's words resonated deeply, especially with families who had faced similar tragedies. After the speech, she met with several attendees, listening to their stories and offering support through the Gabby Petito Foundation. One woman, whose sister had gone missing in 2023, hugged Nicole and whispered, "Thank you for giving us a voice." The conference marked a significant moment for the foundation, which announced a new initiative to fund domestic violence shelters across the country, ensuring that survivors had a safe place to turn. Back in Blue Point, New York, Joe Petito spent April 4th reflecting on Gabby's life. He visited the community garden dedicated to her, sitting on a bench near the mural of her smiling face. The garden was in full bloom, with tulips and daffodils lining the pathways, a testament to the care the community had put into maintaining it. Joe brought a small notebook, one of Gabby's old sketchbooks, and flipped through the pages, smiling at her drawings of mountains and beaches. "You're still with us, kiddo," he whispered, placing a single white rose at the base of the mural. The rose, Gabby's favorite flower, had become a symbol of her memory for the family, a reminder of her gentle spirit. In Wyoming, Jim Schmidt continued his work with the search and rescue team, dedicating his efforts to Gabby's memory. On April 5, 2025, he led a team into the Bridger-Teton National Forest to search for a missing hiker, a 30-year-old man who had disappeared during a solo trip. The search was successful, with the hiker found alive after 2 days, dehydrated but unharmed. Jim called Nicole to share the news, his voice filled with pride. "This one's for Gabby," he said. The rescue was a small victory, but it reinforced Jim's commitment to helping others, a mission he felt honored Gabby's legacy. Tara Petito, meanwhile, was preparing for the release of her second children's book, a sequel to Gabby's light titled Gabby's Stars. The new book followed the same character, a girl who had become a star, as she helped other stars find their way home, symbolizing the search for missing loved ones. Tara dedicated the book to the families she had met through the foundation, hoping it would bring comfort to children who had experienced loss. The book's release on April 10, 2025, was accompanied by a reading event at a local library in Vero Beach, Florida, where Tara shared Gabby's story with a group of children and their parents. "Gabby taught us to shine, even in the darkest times," she told the audience, her voice soft but resolute. The Gabby Petito Foundation continued to thrive, with its initiatives making a tangible impact. In early 2025, the foundation partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to create a database of missing persons cases, making it easier for law enforcement and families to share information. The database included a section for unresolved cases involving Indigenous women, addressing the disparities that had been highlighted during Gabby's case. The foundation also launched a mobile app, Gabby's Voice, which allowed users to report tips on missing persons cases directly to authorities, streamlining the process of submitting leads. Public awareness of domestic violence continued to grow, with Gabby's story serving as a catalyst for change. In March 2025, a high school in Moab, Utah, held its first annual Gabby Petito Day, an event focused on educating students about healthy relationships. The event featured workshops led by domestic violence survivors and counselors, as well as a screening of clips from the Netflix docuseries American Murder, Gabby Petito. Students created a mural on the school's gymnasium wall, depicting a van driving through a starry sky, with the words "Shine Bright, Gabby" written beneath it. The mural became a permanent fixture, a reminder of the lessons learned from Gabby's tragedy. On April 6, 2025, as the nation reflected on the 4-year anniversary of Gabby's case, her family took a moment to celebrate her life. Nicole, Joe, Jim, and Tara gathered virtually, sharing stories and memories of Gabby over a video call. They laughed about her love for pumpkin spice lattes, her habit of singing off-key in the car, and her dream of one day visiting every national park in the U.S. They also discussed the foundation's future, brainstorming new ways to expand its reach. "Gabby would be so proud of what we've done," Joe said, his voice thick with emotion. She's still changing the world. The legacy of Gabby Petito endures through the lives she has touched, the policies she has influenced, and the love she continues to inspire. Her story, though tragic, has become a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, a family's determination can create lasting change. As Nicole Schmidt said in her speech, Gabby's light still shines. And in the hearts of those who loved her and the countless others who have been moved by her story, that light will never fade.